Welcome to the Athletic FC podcast with me, Ayo Akinwolere. Real Madrid are in chaos following the latest El Clasico. Knocked out of the Champions League and defeat to Barcelona makes another league title unlikely. So where has it all gone wrong for Real Madrid? And is Xabi Alonso the man to fix them? All right, here with us today, we have our La Liga correspondent Dermot Corrigan and Real Madrid writer Guillermo Rai. Right, Dermot, you wrote in your piece, always watch El Clasico, and this was an absolutely delightful one. We already had 6 goals by the first half, with lots of drama in effect. But, you watch Real Madrid's 4th defeat from 4 Clásicos this season. That only tells half the story, in my opinion, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was tremendous entertainment yesterday, like from start to finish, really, from inside the first couple of minutes. You've got a penalty, and then right at the end, Madrid with a chance to come back and maybe make it 4-4. But Barca were deserved winners. They're the better team in the game, and they've been the better team all season in Spain. They've been the best team in Spain. Madrid have lots of really good individuals. We saw again yesterday, Mbappe with a hat-trick. But Barca are a much more complete team, a better collective. Madrid have so many problems in defence. And it was, tremendously entertaining for us. It was tremendously fantastic for the Barca fans, the Barca players, and it was pretty not so good for Madrid. Even Mbappe scores a hat-trick, and, I don't think he was too happy going home last night on the plane to Madrid.
Yeah, let's talk about Mbappe, Guillermo. Look, what does Sunday's game for you tell us about his season? He is now broken the record for most goals scored in a debut season for Real Madrid. He's on 39 goals. That's 27 goals in La Liga already with 3 assists and 31 in 31 matches. And that's 7 goals in the Champions League already, excluding cup competitions as well. So as a striker, he seems to be doing his job, right?
Yeah, I think that so far we are able to say that he has been the best player of the squad this season. I think that after the Manchester City triumph, in which Kylian scored as well a hat trick, I think that we all felt that he was at the top of his game, and I think that he has contributed in terms of goals to what the team needed, and it wasn't his fault in that sense. But um, yesterday we felt that it's not enough with Kylian. Obviously, that even that if you have this type of player, you really need a squad behind him, like a really strong squad, and that is what makes a team champion. Yeah.
Yeah, so you think actually Mbappe's done his job. The team and the structure of the team is really what's let Real Madrid down this season.
Obviously, because there have been some complaints about, for example, Kylian Mbappe's defensive intensity. It's not something new. From the start of the season, there were complaints, but what I think is basically if you really have like the rest of the players, the rest of the 10 players behind him, if they really defend, if there is a structure, you don't really need this player to defend. So it's not only his fault, of course, and I think it will change for the next season, because we have all understood that Real Madrid now have and probably is the best news from yesterday. They know that they have like a goal scorer, trusted goal scorer, and it's good news.
Like Mbappe scored a lot of goals, I'd say, but he's come into a team which was working pretty well attacking wise, and now it doesn't work so well attacking wise. It's had knock on effects on Bellingham, who hasn't had a great season. Vinicius's numbers are way down. You could see when you watch the Barca team how they have big superstar attackers, but they all work for each other. They all connect together. There's a team structure in which they all seem to be able to shine. At Madrid at the minute, Mbappe is able to get a lot of goals, but the team structure is not there, and it's having knock-on effects further back the pitch, which is kind of going to be the challenge for the new Madrid coach, with Ancelotti on the way out. If it is Xabi Alonso coming in, and it all points towards it being Xabi Alonso maybe quite soon, but it's going to be a huge job to get Mbappe to continue scoring that amount of goals, maybe even more goals, but to also have the guys around him feeling comfortable, fitting in and performing, having really good goals and assist numbers as well.
Guillermo, look, 16 goals conceded to the same opponent in one season. It's a new record for Real Madrid. Not the kind of history I'm sure the club would like to have made. But how much do these kind of Clasico defeats affect someone like Carlo Ancelotti in his position? Because publicly, losing to your rivals so many times in one season isn't a good sign, considering you want to be the top team in Spain.
Obviously, I think that from the first La Liga Clasico, and it was in October, um, I think that that defeat impacted Ancelotti's future a lot. And from them, there were a lot of criticism regarding his figure. So it has a lot to do with his future and with his current situation. All these defeats, because obviously it's the big game in Spain, but I think that is not the only reason. I think that the Champions League defeat against Arsenal has made the decision even clearer. And with Real Madrid, I think it all depends on the Champions League more than in La Liga. And as they didn't face Barcelona at the Champions League, Ancelotti didn't have the chance to prove himself probably in that stage. But of course, it has been a disaster for the club, for the team. They know that. They also know that they were close to, even closer than people really think, in the first La Liga game, and also in the cup final. They really felt that they had the skills, and they had some offensive power to really make damage to Barcelona, because they know that Barcelona is not perfect. It's not a perfect team. Probably with another Real Madrid squad in another situation, they will have won the title this season, and they will have overcome this situation. But things, as Dermot put, things are where they are right now at Real Madrid. This is the trend, and that's why probably yesterday, even that they were 2 goals ahead, they weren't capable of blocking Barcelona's power. And I think it was like something that it was unstoppable, and Real Madrid couldn't do much.
Yeah, like Ancelotti, like he's quite diplomatic. He's a great communicator. He's can be gracious in defeat. Sometimes he just accepts. Over the 4 Clásicos, he's got more and more like just kind of. I'm trying to say like pissed off with the situation. I'm not sure if we can get away with that, but over the 4 Clásicos, Ancelotti's got a bit more fed up with what he's had to deal with, and injuries have been a big problem for Madrid. In fairness to them, they've lost, like yesterday, they were out their 5 best defenders probably. Like Militao has been out. Danny Carvajal, such a huge influence on the squad as well, the captain from right back. He's been out. They lost Nacho last summer and didn't really replace him. Rudiger is now gone as well. So it's very difficult to play against this Barca team with this attacking flair that they have, the confidence that they have, the ability to score goals from all areas, and to be missing all your best defenders. It's not the only reason why Madrid weren't able to really compete with Barca over the course of the season, but it is a big reason that happened. You could also point to problems with the squad, like if Nacho was going to leave, maybe the club should have brought more defenders last season. They should have been ready. They should have more depth in the squad and not have so many, big name attackers and not enough proper defenders. But that's if you're a Madrid coach, that's kind of what you have to put up with. That's the job, and Ancelotti hasn't been able to handle it so far this season.
Yeah, joining us now to discuss the expected arrival of Xabi Alonso to the Bernabeu following his announcement he'll be leaving Bayer Leverkusen is our Bundesliga correspondent, Seb Stafford-Bloor. Seb, let's talk about this. Xabi Alonso announced on Friday he'd be leaving after the final 2 games of the Bundesliga season. How would you define his coaching impact on the Bundesliga? I was watching a video today that the Bundesliga put out, and they said one of the Bundesliga's greatest, both a player and also a coach.
Yeah, it's quite a legacy when you combine those 2 things. As a coach, I think he's had an incredibly important impact in a couple of different ways. Firstly, clearly it mattered that he interrupted Bayern Munich's dominance of the league, that 11 straight Bundesliga titles did not become 12, and it created a spectacle of last season that mattered. It also showed, and I think this impact will be developed in time. It will depend upon how others use it. It will show that it is possible to challenge Bayern Munich. This idea that they're completely unimpeachable is not really true, and that if you can get enough things right, and this obviously goes beyond just Alonso's coaching impact, that involves Simon Rolfs, Fernando Caro, that's the sporting director, the CEO for sport and the CEO of the club, respectively, at Leverkusen, then you can challenge in a moment in time, and you can take advantage of dropping standards and weakness. But I think more than that, Alonso was this combination of charisma. He's a great communicator, spoke good German, spoke good English, obviously spoke pretty good Spanish too, right? But he was very reachable for everybody, internationally too. His brand of football was extremely attractive. I always think, beyond just literally the way the ball was moved, the not randomness, but the originality of their chance creation made Leverkusen so watchable for so many people. And it made the most of some brilliant individual talent. Of course, when we go down that list, the first player is Florian Wirtz, naturally, because he's, for my money, at least one of the very best players in Germany, and he will be one of the best players in Europe before much longer, I'm sure. It showed the best of so many different players, and I would include Alex Grimaldo on that list, who always been a talented player. I'm not sure people cared about him quite as much as they do now before he arrived. I know he sort of had a bit of a dip in his career. Jeremy Frimpong, Jonathan Tah, Edmund Tapsoba. Granit Xhaka's revival began a little bit at Arsenal before he left, sure, but he really reclaimed his reputation, I feel, properly in terms of what he was able to bring from a leadership and playing perspective combined when he went to Leverkusen. And the whole body of work is extremely, extremely impressive, and has taken what is... I know Leverkusen are a well-funded club, but they're not a very big club in the traditional sense, not in the kind of the... compared with some of the sort of the big beasts of German football. And so what he's been able to achieve is amazing, and it's a great story, and it's a story of tremendous value for German football and the Bundesliga.
Yeah, very quickly before I come to you, Dermot, Seb, do you see in him, and what you've seen in the last couple of seasons, a guy that's ready to step up? Because you talk about, obviously, Leverkusen and their finances, but, this is a gigantual leap to Real Madrid and Florentino Perez and the riches they have and the expectations they have,
Yeah, it's a really good question, Ayo, and it's quite difficult to answer, because the thing to know about Leverkusen is that it's a big club in the kind of infrastructural sense. It's a small place. Leverkusen is a tiny town, really. It lives in the shadow of Cologne, and also because Leverkusen is not Bayern Munich, and everything in German football is kind of pointed towards Bayern or maybe Borussia Dortmund, clubs like Hamburg, Schalke, they're a bigger deal. They have bigger audiences. A lot of what you do at a club like that as a coach and a player goes under the radar, so there's not as much scrutiny as of your mistakes. Whereas at Real Madrid, there is I imagine, I'm not an expert, I'm sitting with two guys who are, I imagine there is a story every day, regardless of whether it's true or not, somehow. And that's something that's something that he will have experienced as a player, of course, because he's played for some of the biggest clubs in world football, not just Real Madrid, Liverpool and Bayern Munich. So that's an adaptation. But then, and also, I think if you look at the playing squad that he inherited when he came in, so famously Leverkusen appointed Alonso when they were in the relegation zone in the Bundesliga in 2022. But that squad was full of players who really should have been contending for European football, and so it was just mass underperformance. That being said, where were the egos? Where were the egos in that group? And even the high profile players like the German internationals, someone like Jonathan Tah, he's not an ego, he's not a diva of a player. I don't pretend to know very much about the mechanics of the Real Madrid dressing room. I can have a good guess at what they're like. And so that's a different challenge altogether. But then you'd say, Alonso's played with some of the very best players to ever play the game. Alonso's been around, Alonso's obviously been in a Real Madrid dressing room before. Alonso's been and survived and flourished in a Bayern Munich dressing room, which is no place for faint hearts. And so he has as good a chance as any. If you think about his ascension into the Leverkusen role, he took that job and succeeded within it, having never had any senior coaching experience before. So yes, clearly this is a jump, but he's already made a quantum leap in the game as it is. So he's equipped for the adjustment, should we say? But I don't think I'd ever feel confident predicting what anything that's going to happen at Real Madrid, or how anyone's going to fare, whether it be a player or a coach. Who knows? But he has all the tools.
Yeah, that's true. And one of those tools will be Trent Alexander-Arnold next season, Dermot. We've mentioned a lot of the chaos going on in the background at Real Madrid. signings could be really interesting this summer for them, especially the kind of players that, if it is Xabi Alonso that takes the job, wants to bring into the squad, but also is a fan base ready for this as well? Because Real Madrid have a very particular way of doing business and playing football.
Yeah, it's a huge step up for Alonso, but I think he's well able to do it. If anybody is able to do it, it'd be Xabi Alonso, because he's such an intelligent guy, and he's been preparing for this, ever since he was a player. I've been looking back, just to do, getting some pieces ready for when he does come over, and looking back at his time at Madrid as a player. And he was there alongside Jose Mourinho. He was there, he built a relationship with Florentino Perez at the time. He's very good at the political part of the game. He's a very intelligent guy. He's worked under all kinds of managers, from Rafa Benitez, Pep Guardiola, Ancelotti, and he's always adapted to what was required in the team. He's a silky player, technically outstanding, but he's also a guy who could get stuck in. Came from Real Sociedad as well, from Basque football. His dad was a player. He's such a football brain, and such a guy who's soaked up things everywhere he's been, and he would have taken a huge amount from the Leverkusen experience, and he showed tremendous coaching ability at Leverkusen. But that doesn't mean that he's going to go to Madrid and try to replicate what he did in Leverkusen, because he'll know that's impossible. He can't micromanage the players the way that he was able to at Leverkusen. The kind of the prearranged moves of working the ball up the pitch. You have to be in this position, and I'm going to play the ball here. You can't go to Bellingham and Vinicius, and maybe not even Trent Alexander-Arnold, and say that's what you're going to have to do. But Alonso will know that. He'll know he'll have to empower the players to play in a certain way. He'll have looked at the squad. He'll have seen the strengths and weaknesses of the squad and work out a plan. If he's going to take over for the Club World Cup, whether he's able to go straight in and do it is going to be super interesting as well. And he'll know they have better attackers than they have defenders, but he'll have to come up with a plan for that. But he'll be able to do it. As Seb said there, he's such a great communicator as well. He'll have thought about what his message is going to be. He'll be able to manage up to Florentino Perez. He'll be able to speak to the guys in the dressing room. He'll know the media guys he has to talk to, the message that he has to send out. So I'm really excited to see how it works out. I'm kind of confident that he'll make a success of it, but it's a huge job. It's a difficult job. Seb was saying there about hinting at the egos in the Madrid dressing room for sure. Guys like Vinicius, like Bellingham, like Mbappe, they all, even Trent Alexander-Arnold, talked about wanting to win the Ballon d'Or. They don't want to just win the Champions League. They want to be the best player in the team that wins the Champions League, so that they can then win the Ballon d'Or, which is, they can't all be because there's only one Ballon d'Or. So
next year's Ballon d'Or is literally Real Madrid, all the way to top 10.
But he'll know that you gotta start from the start. You gotta hit the ground running in La Liga, because Barcelona are likely to be better next season as well. So it's super exciting. Really looking forward to it. But it's a big deal. It's going to give us plenty to be working on for sure, and talking about over the coming months and years.
Guillermo, I'm intrigued by this appointment. If it does happen, it's looking very likely. But, how much excitement is there for Xabi Alonso's return to Real Madrid this summer? And also, I guess there's a narrative here about the romance of his past association with the club as well.
Well, yesterday, the message from the club's board was mostly that this season had the aroma of an end of a cycle. So they all felt that there were something to be done, but they didn't do it because it was the end of Ancelotti's era. Probably now, what I was told is that they are planning on the next season. They want to improve what they have done, and obviously, I think that what they will try to do is to invest on Xavi, to bet on Xavi with more players, adding some new faces in the squad, and it will definitely help Xavi. What make us feel that they really are excited about Xavi's arrival, that I think that not only among the fan base but also within the club, they all really need this type of feeling, this type of new trend around the club. I think with new decisions. And I think that they all agree that is the perfect man for the job, because of all that Seb and Dermot said, but also because I think that his last season as a Real Madrid player, or his last two seasons, were wonderful. He proved that he's a leader. And now that the dressing room really lack leaders, there is a lack of leadership after Toni Kroos' departure, after Nacho Fernandez' departure. They really need someone who probably have the is still like a player because of his aesthetic, because of his fitness, and I think that they all appreciate him, and I think it will help as Zidane helped back in 2016. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You talk about him being his age and maybe still being really young. I think Florian Wirtz did an interview where he was like, we were one man short. We asked Xabi to come and play, and he was just spraying passes left and right, which I thought was so beautiful. But, I want to talk about the man himself, actually, Seb, a little bit, because, he opted to stay at Leverkusen, and he'd been linked to teams like Bayern, Liverpool, and also if you feel he opted to stay at Leverkusen either because of a contractual conversation or just genuinely trying to develop himself as a coach, as a man. What do you think he's learned at Leverkusen for staying that extra 12 months, for instance, that might maybe prepare him for this journey to Real Madrid?
What a great question. I think he's made a couple of mistakes which he can learn from. I think if you look at sort of the tactical approaches employed in some of the games against Bayern Munich this season, certainly the game at Allianz Arena in the league where he just put all of his players behind the ball and kind of didn't want to concede. A few positional selectional blunders in the Champions League against Bayern as well, which led to that very, very humbling 2-leg defeat in the round of 16. I don't think that his decision for staying was about learning. I think his decision for staying was based on a few things. Firstly, that there was plenty of mileage left in that team, that it was a side full of players who still had some potential to reach. I think also, and I don't know enough about the inner workings of Real Madrid to know how this translates, but he had a very enviable situation at Leverkusen in terms of the relationship with Rolfs and Caro. So if you ever went to Leverkusen training, particularly in pre-season, those three would kind of gather together on the pitch afterwards to discuss club business, and there was no interference between them. So they're all on the same page about all the decisions. They're all united about what they were doing, and that became relevant this year too, because as Alonso himself said in his press conference, and as Fernando Caro has said throughout this season, if Xabi wants to go, he can go. We're not going to stand in his way. We're not here to block his route into the game. We're just going to make sure that as and when that time comes, we all sit down, have a conversation, and agree a strategy that works best for everybody. And that may be Alonso moving to a different club. That may be Leverkusen having the time to prepare for next season, because German clubs typically like to do their business and their recruiting much earlier. They're not a sort of transfer deadline day. They're not enslaved to transfer deadline day in the way that sort of a lot of Premier League clubs are, for instance. And so, it doesn't really work to kind of go right into the middle of the summer without a coach. And sort of having the benefit of that relationship has allowed him to, I don't know, just have another season out of the spotlight where you can make some mistakes. You can see the consequences of not starting a forward, for instance, in a game against Bayern Munich. Or I think one of the themes of Leverkusen's season, and certainly one of the reasons that they were not able to to defend their title, was sort of defensive sloppiness, a carelessness with leads, a complacency. I use that term cautiously because it guesses at the way players were thinking, but there was certainly a little bit of a hangover from last season, and it was very difficult for a lot of those players to rediscover the levels that they reached, completely understandably, because for Bayer Leverkusen, an undefeated domestic double, that's completing football. You can't do anything else. It's just not achievable. And so maybe one of the lessons for him is when you go to a club where winning look, please jump in if I'm wrong here, it doesn't ever seem like winning La Liga is a big deal for Real Madrid. It's like just something that they should do, and then everything else is measured against European progress. So for someone like Alonso, how do you go to a club where you have to keep raising a level, or you have to keep maintaining the absolute level among all your players, otherwise, failure in inverted commas. So I think that's one of the things that he'll have learned. How do you guard against that? What are the warning signs? Also, I know he won't be responsible for recruitment in Madrid, but what do you need to do with a successful squad to replenish it properly? What's the right balance there? How do you keep the hunger? These little sort of intangible things that, as members of the media, we just guess at, really, because we never get to see the mechanics of the football teams. But I think that there are small little details. I don't think there's been any major changes, certainly not to his football or his personality, but that's maybe something he'll take away.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dermot, because Guillermo says the Real Madrid want to invest in the coach, but I'm also looking at this interesting fan base who don't seem to have time for investing. They want results very quickly. This is a fan base that boo players when they're not happy with them. I mean, do we feel like he'll get time to embed his ideas, his tactics, his knowledge, what he wants from this team? And I know Seb also said perhaps these aren't the team. Won't be the team of his choosing. But is there patience? Do you feel there will be patience for Xabi to whisk his magic wand?
Patience is not really a word that is used very much around Real Madrid, but he'll know that for sure. And if he is coming into the Club World Cup, he's to do that with one squad. He's already will have to be thinking about which changes are going to be made, who we're going to bring in, who might have to leave. Summer's not going to be very long. It's new for everybody, this whole Club World Cup kind of idea, and then have to hit the ground running in La Liga. There's like the squad that Madrid have cannot play the type of football that he has used so far at Leverkusen. But looking back at Real Sociedad when he was with the youth team there, he had ideas. He fitted in with how Real Sociedad played. He played more four-man defense. He had more possession, kind of more typical Real Sociedad style play. So he'll adapt to what's needed at Real Madrid, and he'll have thought about it. Like he could have gone. We're pretty sure he could have gone to Liverpool like 12 months ago, but he decided to stay, maybe to learn a little bit more, challenge himself in the Champions League, and also to wait for the opportunity to come along at Madrid. Madrid had just won the Champions League, so there wasn't going to be a change there. One thing is that Madrid don't have a lot of money to spend. Maybe they'll go out and blow on a big attacking superstar. We're not sure, but they have, the club earn a lot of money, but they're also spending a lot of money, both on wages and especially on the Bernabeu rebuild, which has cost more money than they expected, and they're not getting as much money out of it as they expected because of the problems hosting concerts and other events, which is still to be kind of sorted out at the stadium. So it's not going to be a case that they're going to be able to go, okay, I'd like to bring in, Rodri would be perfect for my way of playing to play the back of midfield, and I'd like to have two new wing backs. Maybe we'll go and get Grimaldo, and maybe we'll sign somebody else to play on the right. That he's going to have to make do with what he has. Maybe, is Trent Alexander-Arnold going to be the guy who plays the Xabi Alonso role in midfield? Can he sort that out? I'm not sure that that's possible, but if somebody's going to be able to do it, maybe Xabi Alonso is able to do it. He'll have to be smart about what he does and set the team up within the kind of strictures of being the Real Madrid coach, and at the same time, hit the ground running and win games from the start. So I'd expect there to be some movement in the transfer window, maybe some surprise exits. It's not Madrid during Florentino Perez's time as president have often sold players, for big money to the Premier League when unexpectedly, maybe somebody will leave in the summer. Maybe that'll free up a bit of space in the squad and some money to spend as well. So it's going to be a huge challenge, as I said before, and super, super fascinating to see. But, it wouldn't be a huge surprise if they go win the Club World Cup in, a couple of weeks' time. That earns you a lot of money as well to spend because of the, all the money FIFA are throwing at it. It earns you prestige. It earns you, maybe a little bit more time to get things sorted next season. And it's not the most difficult competition to win. So, again, so much potential for Xabi Alonso. And he is, it's hard to overstate what a big figure Xabi Alonso is within Spanish football. If he comes from a line of footballers, his family are huge in football. So he has that kind of pedigree amongst the football people. He wins the World Cup. He goes to England, does really well with Rafa Benitez at Liverpool, wins his Champions League. Liverpool comes back to Madrid, is there with Mourinho, has played under Pep Guardiola, knows everybody. And I was just laughing a little bit to myself when Seb was talking about, or you were saying as well about the players at Leverkusen, being impressed with his technique and everybody wants to be, this is my theory, everybody wants to be Xabi Alonso, like I do. Like he's got that charisma, he's got that just feeling. And whereas Ancelotti was like the grandfather in the dressing room, he didn't have that close connection to guys like Bellingham or Vinicius. It's harder for him to understand that. Maybe Davide Ancelotti played part of that role, but it's, Davide Ancelotti doesn't have the the playing career or the CV of somebody like Alonso. He's won everything. He's cool. He's young. He's going to be able to, maybe like Zidane, as Guy said, that he's able to connect with the players on their wavelength and get them to do things. Get Mbappe to run a bit harder, as Zidane was able to do with Ronaldo and Benzema and these guys, at least at some stages or in the biggest games. So he has all those positives behind him. It's a difficult job at Real Madrid. It's one of the most difficult jobs in world football for sure. But he, everybody's kind of feels that he's one of the best young coaches in world football, and the fit is just perfect. So let's see how it goes.
Like Guillermo, Trent is expected to be the first summer signing for Real Madrid, but given how poorly this season has gone, how much work is there to do on this Real Madrid squad?
Yeah, a lot. We all give for granted the Trent Alexander-Arnold's arrival, but apart from him, as we already reported, they are looking for a left back, they are looking for centre backs, probably a creative midfielder. But as Dermot said previously, it all depends on the departures, on the sales. We will have to see if, for example, Rodrigo Goes is leaving at some point, if an offer arrives. I think that it will depend much on these exits before new incomings. But the truth is that Real Madrid have been planning the next season along with Xabi Alonso for some time now. Even that he wasn't the coach, there have been time to discuss the future of the club. And given that Real Madrid, or the way of doing things at Real, what is more reasonable in terms of thinking and planning is that they will try to get the squad done before the Club World Cup, and they will focus on the Club World Cup as it was the new season, even that we know that is the last tournament of the season. Yeah.
Very quickly, Guillermo, something that just dawned on me is the leadership in this squad. We spoke about Toni Kroos and what they've lacked with his absence. You think about Casemiro leaving, you think about Benzema leaving over the last couple of seasons. There's a big 40-year-old on the books, Luka Modric. What's happening with him? Because it's interesting trying to reshape a team, but you also don't want to lose the DNA of the team as well, the people that know what it's like to play for Real Madrid.
Yeah, at this point, we don't have news regarding a renewal, which is really news, because at this point of the season, Real Madrid usually plan the next season and they usually sit on the table and discuss with the legends about the next year. And as we don't have news, there is uncertainty regarding the Luka Modric and also Lucas Vázquez future. There is this scenario in which in the next season, Xabi Alonso won't be able to have both Luka Modric and Lucas Vázquez, and it will make bigger the leadership problem, of course, and it will be Xabi Alonso's duty to give to give the space and to give the opportunity to the youngsters to give a step. To give the next step, right? So it will all depend now on the youngsters. I think it's a process that is ongoing, that is not new, of course, because Ancelotti tried to do it with Eduardo Camavinga, with Aurelian Tchouameni, with Jude Bellingham. Of course, we reported back in September that the coaching staff saw that, for example, Jude Bellingham could be one of the future leaders. Of course, Kylian Mbappe, Vinicius Junior, they have maybe to give another step now, next season. And it will all depend, of course, on the next legends leaving. And it's like the natural process. I think that all at the club understood that is something that it can be sorted out and it can be solved because they have a lot of stars.
All right, gents, let's end it there. We are all super excited. All right, Dermot, Guillermo, thanks for your insight. And also Seb as well. Thanks for joining us a little earlier. And thank you guys for watching as well. Don't forget to like the video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave us a comment as well. That's it for now. We're back soon. If you want to watch more episodes of the show, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be joined by the likes of David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the season. If you'd like to listen to the episodes in full in audio form, search The Athletic FC wherever you get your podcasts from.